The sound of his hand hitting my face was so sharp it felt like a gunshot in that small dining room in Oak Cliff. My head snapped to the side, my ear rang, and for a second I just stared at the wall, at the family photos of Jordan as a little boy. The taste of blood crept into my mouth where my teeth cut my lip. My cheek burned hot. The room went still. You could hear the TV in the living room and the clock on the wall ticking, but nobody at that table said a word. I turned my eyes back to my husband. Jordan Mitchell, the man who promised to love and protect me, was standing over me, chest heaving, hands still shaking from the slap. There was no shock on his face, no shame, only anger, like I deserved it, like I was a child who needed to be corrected. On his right sat his mother, Miss Claudette. She had one hand over her mouth, acting like she was horrified, but I saw it, clear as day, before she fixed her face. A tiny smile, a flash of pride in her eyes. She glanced at Jordan and then at me, like she had finally won some long game I did not even know we were playing. "Jordan," she whispered, soft and fake. "Maybe that was a little much. But she did provoke you, baby. Provoke him." That was the word she chose after he hit me in her house because I said one small word, no. No, I do not want your mother moving into our home. No, I do not want to live as a third wheel in my own marriage. No, I am done pretending this is normal. My face was still stinging, but something inside me went very still. It was like a camera finally coming into focus. I looked around that table, his aunt staring at her plate, his uncle blinking, unsure what to do, one cousin pretending to scroll on his phone. Nobody stood up for me. Not one person said, "Jordan, you are out of line." Not one person told his mama to stop. For 7 years, I had tried to be the good wife, the patient daughter-in-law, the woman who swallowed her hurt and kept smiling for the sake of peace. That slap told me the truth. They were never going to see my sacrifice. They were never going to be satisfied. They wanted me small. They wanted me silent. They wanted me scared. Tears burned in my eyes. But I refused to let them fall in front of that table. Slowly, I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the tile. Everybody looked up, but still nobody spoke. My hand shook as I reached for my purse hanging on the back of the chair. My cheek throbbed with every heartbeat. Jordan stepped toward me like he might grab my arm again. I straightened my back and met his eyes. "If you touch me again," I said, my voice low and flat, "you will never see me again. Do you understand me?" For the first time that night, he hesitated. I walked past him, past Miss Claudette, past the pot roast and the sweet tea and the peach cobbler sitting untouched on the table. I walked out of that brick house in Oak Cliff, down the steps, and into the heavy Texas night. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My cheek was on fire. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to get my car key into the lock. When I slid into the driver's seat, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. A bright red handprint was blooming across my brown skin. My lip was split. My eyes looked empty. For a few long seconds I just stared at that woman in the mirror. I almost did not recognize her. Then something strange happened. I saw my face, and instead of breaking down, I felt a deep, cold calm spread through my chest. The guessing was over. The mask was off. The truth was too loud to ignore. I took a long breath that made my ribs hurt and wrapped both hands around the steering wheel. I could have driven back to our little townhouse in DeSoto, waited for Jordan to storm in, and listened to him blame me for what he had done. I could have wiped my face, told myself it was a one-time thing, and prepared for another round of keep the peace. That is what the old Ariana would have done. Smile, cook dinner, go to church, pretend everything was fine, while my heart slowly shrank. Instead, I put the car in reverse, backed out of Miss Claudette's driveway, turned away from DeSoto, and headed for the highway. The green signs for I-35 and then I-20 rose up in front of me. I took the ramp that pointed east, toward Louisiana, toward Baton Rouge, toward my people and the life I had before I ever became Jordan's wife. The farther I drove from Dallas, the darker the sky got, and the lighter I started to feel. The ring in my ear slowly faded. My cheek still hurt, but now it felt like a warning flare, not just a wound. A sign I would never forget. The highway lights slid over the hood of my car like slow waves. Trucks hummed by, headed to places I would never see. Somewhere near the Texas and Louisiana state line, with my gaslight glowing, I finally said the words out loud, "I am done." My voice shook, but I said it again, louder this time, "I am done with being small. I am done with being scared." By the time the lights of Baton Rouge finally appeared, the sky was turning gray. My body was heavy, but my mind was sharp. I parked at my little sister's house and finally exhaled. My old life ended that night. My name is Ariana Mitchell, but most people call me Ari. I am 34, an elementary school teacher from DeSoto, Texas. For 7 years I thought I was building a forever home. One slap at that table proved me wrong. If you have ever felt small at a dinner table, stay with me, comment your city, and please subscribe. When I think about that slap now, it feels like a scene from a different movie. To understand it, you have to see how my story began. Not with yelling, not with lawyers, but with hope. It was 2016 inches South Dallas, and I was 25, in my second year teaching third grade in DeSoto. My paycheck was small, my car was old, and my couch was from a thrift store, but I was proud. I had my own little apartment, my own classroom full of loud kids, and a heart that still believed love and faith could fix almost anything. That summer, our church held a big community day in the parking lot. We set up long plastic tables under white tents. There were pans of ribs and chicken, bowls of potato salad, and coolers of sweet tea and lemonade. Smoke from the grill floated in the air. Kids chased each other between cars. Somebody played old-school R&B on a speaker, and the church ladies in bright dresses fanned themselves and talked. I was working the food table, scooping baked beans, when I saw him. Across the lot, a group of teenage boys were tossing a football. One man stood with them, laughing and giving them tips. Every time a boy dropped the ball, he clapped and said, "You're good, try again," never once sounding annoyed. When one kid finally caught it, he shouted like they had won a big game. That man was Jordan Mitchell. He was tall and solid, with warm brown skin and a neat haircut. His white button-down shirt was damp from the heat, but he still looked sharp. What caught me was not his looks, it was the way he spoke to those boys. Gentle and patient, like he cared who they would grow up to be. When the game slowed down, Jordan walked over to my table and held out a plate. "You've been feeding everybody," he said. "Can you spare some for me?" I laughed and piled on ribs, chicken, and sides. We started talking. He told me he was from Oak Cliff, worked as an insurance broker, and had grown up in this church. He said he liked helping families feel covered. I told him I was a teacher in DeSoto, that I loved my students even when they drove me crazy, and that I had moved from Baton Rouge after college. It felt easy, like talking to someone I had known for a long time. "You must be tired all the time," he said. "Every day," I answered. "But it's the good kind of tired." He nodded. "That sounds like purpose." We kept talking. We learned we both loved Sunday dinners, old music, and long car rides with the windows down. We both said faith mattered more in daily life than in flashy words. People moved around us, but it felt like we were in a small bubble. I did not know someone else was watching until a woman in a navy dress and pearl earrings walked up holding a glass dish. "Baby, where you want this cobbler?" she asked Jordan. His whole voice softened. "Dessert table, Mama. Folks are waiting on it." That was my first time meeting Miss Claudette. She shook my hand and smiled. "A teacher? Bless you. These babies need help. I'm Claudette. You can call me Miss Claudette." Her tone was warm, but her eyes were sharp, like she could see a lot in 1 second. In that moment she seemed like every church mother I knew, strong and funny and a little bossy. If you had told me then that one day I would stand in her dining room with my cheek on fire from her son's hand, I would have laughed. After that day, Jordan and I did not stop talking. At first it was short texts. "How was your day? My kids were wild." Then it became long phone calls at night. He told me he was an only child, that his father, Mr. Leonard, worked long shifts at a plant, and his mother was a bank manager who kept everything in order. I told him about Baton Rouge, my parents still married after 30 years, and my little sister Sierra with the smart mouth. Our first date was simple, dinner at a small restaurant with sticky tables and good food. He opened my door, listened when I talked, and called me the next day like he promised. We fell into a rhythm. Weekdays were for work and quick check-ins. Fridays were for movies or just driving around Dallas, pointing at houses and saying one day. Sundays were for church in South Dallas in the morning, and dinner at Miss Claudette's brick house in Oak Cliff. Her Sunday table felt like a picture from a family book. Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, greens, cornbread, and her peach cobbler waiting on the side. Plastic on the living room furniture, framed photos lined up on the wall, lace cloth on the table, and real napkins on Sundays. Deacon Ronald prayed long before we ate. At first I felt like a guest. Then slowly, I started to feel claimed. In the kitchen, while we checked rolls or stirred gravy, Miss Claudette talked softer. "I like you, Ariana," she told me once. "You work. You've got sense. My son needs a woman who understands responsibility, not just somebody who wants to spend money." No one had ever blessed and tested me in the same breath like that. I felt proud that I seemed to pass. 2 years after we met, in early 2018, Jordan asked me to marry him right after church, kneeling in front of the pulpit while the choir was still humming. I said yes, with tears in my eyes. At our wedding later that year, Miss Claudette took the microphone and said, "Ariana, you are not just my daughter-in-law. You are my daughter." I believed her. After the wedding, we moved into a small townhouse in DeSoto, about 20 minutes from her house. It had 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and a tiny yard. We painted the kitchen soft yellow and the living room warm beige. Jordan hung a big TV and kept stepping back to make sure it was straight. We ate pizza on the floor the first night and dreamed. Maybe 2 kids, maybe 3. Maybe I would become an assistant principal. Maybe he would open his own office. From the outside, we looked like a young, stable black family in the Dallas suburbs. Those first years of marriage felt almost soft around the edges. We were not rich, but the bills got paid on time. We argued here and there about small things, like whose turn it was to take out the trash, or why he left socks on the floor, but they never lasted long. Jordan still called his mother every day on his lunch break. He still fixed little things around her house on Saturdays, changing light bulbs and trimming bushes. At church, people smiled at me and said, "You got you a good one. That boy loves his mama and his wife." I believed them. He brought me flowers on random Tuesdays, sat with me at school programs, and bragged about my students to anyone who would listen. On Sundays, after service, we went back to that same brick house in Oak Cliff. Only now, I did not feel like a guest. I brought side dishes. I helped set the table without being asked. When Deacon Ronald prayed over Jordan and Ariana's home, I bowed my head as a real Mitchell. Miss Claudette would look across the table at me and say, "How's my daughter doing at that school?" In those moments, I pictured us growing old in DeSoto, bringing our children to run through her yard, trading shifts caring for our parents when they needed us. I thought the shape of our life was clear. I could not see the crack forming at the edges, or the way one late-night phone call could take that gentle picture and turn it into something sharp enough to cut. If you had stopped the story there, you would have sworn we were safe, steady, and built to last for decades and many holidays. 3 years into our marriage, late in 2019, the first crack appeared. Mr. Leonard had a heart attack at work and died before they reached the hospital. Grief moved into Miss Claudette's house overnight, and slowly, the woman who called me daughter began to change. Grief moved into Miss Claudette's house, like an unwanted guest. After Mr. Leonard's funeral, we were there almost every day. I cooked, I cleaned, I sat while she cried and told the same stories again and again. This was my husband's mother. This was family. I kept telling myself, this is what love looks like. This is what you do. At first, her calls made sense. She phoned Jordan in the evenings, voice thin and shaky. "Baby, I just miss your daddy tonight," she would say. Jordan would look at me with sad eyes. I always said, "Go, it'll be fine." Slowly, the calls changed. A quick check-in turned into 3 calls before noon, and 2 more at night. Some days, she called while Jordan was at work, and if I didn't pick up his phone, she called my phone, then the house phone. If I was teaching, my screen lit up with her name again and again. I tried to be kind. I dropped off meals, brought small gifts, listened while she talked about how empty the bed felt at night. But as months went by, her sadness grew a sharp edge. The first time I really felt it was one Tuesday afternoon. That day, I came home from school tired down to my bones. I just wanted to kick off my shoes and breathe. When I opened the front door to our townhouse in DeSoto, a strong smell hit me. Pine cleaner, lavender spray. Not my scent. In the kitchen, I froze. My counters were bare. Things I kept by the stove were moved. The coffee mugs that used to sit by the coffee maker were now in a cabinet above the oven. My spice rack, which I had lined up in alphabet order, was arranged by color. In the laundry room, Jordan's shirts were rehung on new hangers, all facing the same way, ironed flat in the exact style his mother liked. This was supposed to be my home, our home. Instead, it looked and smelled like her house in Oak Cliff. By the door, the little dish where we kept the spare key was empty. The key we had given her after Mr. Leonard died just in case was gone. She had used that key, and spent who knows how many hours in my house, going through my things, changing my space, making it her own. When Jordan came in, he looked relaxed. I tried to keep my voice even. "Your mom was here today," I said. "She rearranged everything." He barely looked up. "Yeah, she mentioned she might stop by to drop off some Tupperware." "She didn't just drop anything off," I said. "She went through the whole house. She took the spare key." His jaw tightened. "Ariana, she's trying to help," he said. "You work long hours. She knows you're tired. She's just taking care of things. I need you to ask her to call before she comes over," I said quietly. "This is our home, not hers." He stared at me. "You sound ungrateful," he said. "She lost her husband. She's doing the best she can." That word ungrateful hit me like a rock. That night, I lay in bed asking myself if I was overreacting. Maybe I was mean. Maybe this was what a good daughter-in-law looked like. Doubt grew like a weed. It didn't stop there. Thanksgiving came a few weeks later. We were hosting for the first time. I cleaned the house, thawed the turkey, laid out my grandmother's sweet potato pie recipe. At 8 in the morning, the doorbell rang. There was Miss Claudette with bags of groceries and a roasting pan. "I thought I'd come help, sweetie," she said, walking past me into my kitchen like it already belonged to her. Every time I started a task, she took it over. "You don't want it lumpy," she said, taking the spoon from my hand. By the time the family arrived, I felt like a guest at my own dinner. 2 sweet potato pies sat on the counter. One was mine, one was hers. When Jordan's aunt took a bite and said, "This is delicious, miss," Claudette smiled and said, "Well, somebody has to teach Ariana proper Southern cooking." The table went quiet. My face burned. I waited for Jordan to speak up. He just chuckled. "Mama, you're terrible," he said. Later, when I tried to explain how it made me feel, he said, "That's just how she is. You're being too sensitive." Around that same time, the late-night emergency started. The first call came at 2 in the morning. The phone lit up on Jordan's side of the bed. He answered, voice thick with sleep. "Mama? What's wrong?" I could hear her crying. "My chest," she said. "It hurts. I think I'm having a heart attack." We threw on clothes and rushed to her house, then followed the ambulance to the hospital. I sat in a cold waiting room, heart pounding. 4 hours later, the doctor said all her tests were normal. "Probably anxiety," he said. "Stress. Grief can do that." 3 weeks later, it happened again. Same time, same fear, same hospital, same result. The third time, we were dressed for date night, ready to leave, when the phone rang. Another emergency. Another long night in the ER. By the 4th emergency in 6 months, a small part of my mind noticed a pattern. Every time Jordan and I tried to make plans, something happened to pull him back to her. Sitting under bright hospital lights at 3 in the morning, watching her laugh with a nurse while Jordan filled out forms, a quiet thought slipped into my mind. This isn't just grief. This is control. I pushed that thought away. It felt mean. At church, older women patted my hand. A good wife honors her mother-in-law, they said. Friends shrugged. Girl, that's just how mother-in-laws are, Jordan said. She's lonely. She gave up everything for me. So I tried. I cooked extra food and sent it home with him. I spent Saturdays helping her clean closets. I told myself, this is just a phase. But things did not settle. They grew. Her calls got sharper. Her comments cut deeper. The look in her eyes when she talked to me shifted from soft to cold. On the outside, I still went to work, graded papers, smiled at parents, laughed with coworkers. On the inside, I felt like I was shrinking. My world used to be school, home, my family in Baton Rouge, and time with my husband. Now it circled around one person, his mother. One afternoon, after a long week, my best friend Tiana came over. We sat at my kitchen table. I told her everything. The calls, the comments, the surprise visits, the late-night trips to the ER, the way Jordan always took his mother's side. When I finished, Tiana stared at me. Ari, she said, you do know this is not normal, right? I don't know, I said. Everybody keeps saying that's just how mother-in-laws are. Maybe I'm the one who needs to adjust. Maybe I'm selfish. She shook her head. No, you're not selfish. You're drowning. There's a difference. Her words made my eyes fill with tears. So, what am I supposed to do? I whispered. First, she said, stop leaving it all in your head. Start writing everything down. Dates, times, what she says, what he says. Keep the texts. You might not be ready to make a big move yet, but if this keeps going, you're going to need a record. That night, I sat at my dining table with a cheap notebook. On the first line, I wrote the date. Then I wrote about the surprise cleaning day, the Thanksgiving comment, the late-night hospital trips. My hand shook, but I kept going. As the page filled, I still felt small, but a tiny part of me felt less crazy. I was not making this up. I could see it in ink. Writing the truth in that little notebook felt small, but it was my first tiny step back toward myself again that night. Looking back, that was the first quiet shift inside me. On the outside, I was still the nice girl who smiled at Sunday dinner and let people talk over her. Inside, a small witness woke up and started paying attention. If you've ever felt yourself shrinking to keep the peace, but your gut keeps whispering, "This is T-right" type, I see myself in the comments. Your words might be the first proof that somebody else is not alone. The notebook did not fix my life, but it changed something in me. Once I started writing things down, it was like putting on glasses for the first time. At first, the changes were small. A comment here, a decision there. It really shifted the day I came home and found Jordan in the living room with a big grin on his face, scrolling on his phone. "Guess what, babe?" he said. "Mama booked us a family trip. Hilton Head for the 4th of July. Beach house, the whole family. It's going to be great." I paused in the doorway, still holding my work bag. "A trip?" I asked. He nodded, excited. "Yeah, she found a good deal. She already put the deposit down. It'll be all of us together." My stomach tightened. "Jordan?" "We talked about visiting my parents for the 4th, I said slowly. "Remember? I already told them. I arranged the time off." He waved his hand. "We can see your people another time," he said. "You know my mama's been through a lot. This will lift her spirits." There it was again. His mother's needs as the sun, everything else spinning around her. Not once did he ask what I wanted. The vacation was not a choice. It was a decision already made. I went to the kitchen, wrote the date in my notebook, and wrote, "Family trip planned." I was told, not asked. A few weeks later, small turned into big. I sat at our dining table one evening with my laptop and a pile of bills. I logged into our joint account and frowned. The balance was much lower than I expected. I clicked through the statement. There were large withdrawals I did not recognize, and charges at stores near Oak Cliff. "Jordan?" I called. He walked in, drying his hands on a dish towel. "Yeah? Did you buy something big this month?" I asked. "There are a lot of charges I don't understand." He shifted his weight. "Oh, that," he said. "I gave Mama access to the account. Shay's on a fixed income now. I wanted her to have money for emergencies." "Emergencies," I repeated. "Jordan, these aren't hospital bills. This is new curtains, a tablet, and this." I pointed at a large charge from a furniture store. "What is this?" He looked annoyed. "She needed some things," he said. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. She is my mother. What am I supposed to do? Let her struggle?" "You gave her access to our joint account without telling me," I said quietly. "Our money, Jordan. Both of ours. You didn't talk to me." "You're so controlling," he snapped. "It's just money. I handle it. You don't have to worry." "It's not about the money," I said. "It's about respect." He rolled his eyes and walked out of the room. Later that night, when he went to take a shower, I picked up his tablet from the coffee table. An email notification flashed at the top of the screen. It was from a furniture store. The subject line said, "Delivery confirmation, storage unit." I opened it and read. A bed frame, a dresser, a nightstand, all delivered to a storage unit near Oak Cliff. The order name said, "Future Room Set." I already knew what it meant, but seeing it in writing made my stomach twist. She wasn't just staying in our guest room sometimes. She was building a room that belonged to her, paid for with our money, waiting for the day she would move into my home like it was normal. I wrote it all in my notebook. Furniture for future room delivered, paid from joint account. I was not told. As things at home grew tighter, things at church got worse too. One Sunday, in the middle of service, pastor called for prayer requests. People stood and shared normal things: health, jobs, kids. Then Miss Claudette stood up. She held a tissue in one hand, her shoulders shaking. "I want to ask for prayer," she said, voice soft but clear. "For wives who resist God's plan for family unity, for women who put their own desires above the needs of their husbands and their families. We need to pray that their hearts soften." She never said my name, but she didn't have to. I felt eyes on me from every row. I stared straight ahead at the pulpit, my skin burning. I could feel Jordan's hand around mine. He squeezed gently like this was some wise message, not a public attack. After service, church mothers hugged Miss Claudette and told her she was strong. Some gave me looks I could not read. A few women came up and asked, "Everything all right at home, baby?" In that way, that says they already picked a side. I went home and wrote the date, the words she used, how many people turned to look at me. It felt like writing the minutes from a meeting where I had been on trial without warning. It didn't stop at church. A week later, my principal, Mr. Rick Lawson, called me into his office. He was a middle-aged black man, with kind eyes and a serious voice. When I walked in, he motioned for me to sit. "Ariana," he said, "is everything okay at home?" My heart dropped. "Yes," I said slowly. "Why?" He folded his hands. "Your husband's mother called the school," he said. "She said she was worried about you. She said there was a lot of stress at home, and she thought it might be affecting your work. She asked if we could keep an eye on you, maybe give you some extra time off." I felt sick. "She called you?" I asked. "Here?" He nodded. "I told her that if you needed support, you would talk to us. I also told her calls like that are not appropriate. I want you to know, I don't see any problem with your work. You're one of our best teachers, but I needed you to know, this is happening." Shame crawled up my neck like heat. It was one thing to be attacked at church. It was another thing to have my mother-in-law reach into my job, the place I felt sure and strong. "I'm so sorry," I said, even though I had done nothing wrong. "She shouldn't have called you." He shook his head. "You don't have to apologize for other people's behavior," he said gently. "But you do need to protect yourself. If this keeps happening, document it, and if you ever need help, my door is open." I went home and sat at the table with my notebook open. I wrote about the call, I wrote about the shame, I wrote that my job, my safe place, no longer felt safe. Outside of work and church, Miss Claudette's words kept working on people. At family gatherings, small digs slipped into casual talk. "Ariana works so much," she would say with a sad smile. "Sometimes I worry she doesn't understand real family values." Cousins nodded. Aunties sighed. If I tried to speak, she would cut me off. "Oh, I'm just joking," she'd say. "You're so serious." Jordan heard all of it. He did not once say, "Mama, that's enough." My body carried the stress before my mind could admit it. I lost weight without trying. Food tasted like paper. My hands shook sometimes while I wrote on the board in front of my students. Before family dinners at Miss Claudette's house, my chest tightened and my breath grew short. I told myself I was just tired. My notebook told the truth. The more she pushed, the smaller I became. One Saturday, my sister Sierra drove in from Baton Rouge. She said she just wanted to see Dallas, but I knew she came to see me. She stayed at our townhouse. We went out for brunch, and later that afternoon, Miss Claudette just happened to drop by. She walked right in with her key, carrying a dish we did not ask for, pointing out dust on the TV stand, correcting how I folded the napkins. When she left, Sierra turned to me with her eyebrows raised. "Is it always like this?" she asked. I tried to shrug it off. "She's just involved," I said. "Ari," Sierra said slowly, "this is not normal. She walks in here like she owns the place. She talks to you like you're the help. And Jordan just lets it happen." Later that night, when Sierra tried to gently talk to Jordan about boundaries, he exploded. "This is exactly what Mama said would happen," he snapped. "Your family would try to turn you against her." After he stormed out, Sierra looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You know this isn't okay, right?" she whispered. "You know she's not just sad and lonely. She's controlling him. And he's letting her." I felt like I was standing on a bridge with cracks under my feet. On one side was my old picture of family. Sunday dinners, shared faith, growing old together. On the other side was a dark path I could not see yet. I was not ready to walk it, but I knew I could not stand still forever. That night I added one more line to my notebook. "Today my sister saw everything. She said it isn't normal." For the first time, I believed her more than I believed them. The clouds were not just building anymore, they were moving closer. And deep inside, under the fear and confusion, something in me started to say, "Get ready." I did not know when or how. When I left Monique's office that day in Baton Rouge, my head felt full and empty at the same time, full of law, words, and plans. Empty because the truth had finally settled in. Nobody was coming to rescue me. If I wanted a different ending, I had to help write it. That night in Sierra's guest room, I opened my notebook and turned to a clean page. At the top I wrote, in shaky blue ink, "New plan." Under it I drew 3 short columns and labeled them, "Safety," "Money," "Proof." In the safety column I wrote, "Extra clothes and shoes at Sierra's. Copies of ID, Social Security card, teaching license, passport. Keys left with Sierra and my parents. Daily check-in text at 9 p.m. If I don't answer, Sierra calls the police." In the money column, "Open new bank account at a different bank. Move half of joint savings," Monique said. "Im allowed. Check my credit report. Freeze any new cards he doesn't know about." In the proof column, photos of my face already done. Hospital records from all those emergencies. Bank statements with his mama's spending. Screenshot every text where he blames me. Call recording app. Hidden camera for the living room. When I finished, I sat back and just stared at the page. My heart still hurt. My cheek still burned when I touched it. But for the first time since that slap, my fear wasn't running wild. It had somewhere to go. It had orders. The next morning, Sierra drove me to a different bank across town. I sat in front of a young teller with a smooth ponytail and a nose ring. She smiled politely. "How can I help you today?" "I need to open a checking account," I said. "Just in my name." and I'd like to move some funds from a joint account into this one. She asked a few questions, clicked her keyboard, and within 30 minutes, I had a new debit card and routing number. My hands shook a little when I transferred half the money from the joint account ID shared with Jordan. Monique's voice played in my mind. You are not stealing. You are preserving your own resources. This is your legal right. After the bank, Sierra dropped me at a little electronics store. I walked out with a small digital recorder that could slide into a pocket and a cheap clock with a tiny camera hidden in the face. It looked like something you'd buy at a discount store and forget about on a shelf. Perfect. That night, my parents called from North Carolina. Baby girl, my daddy said, his voice rougher than usual. If you go back in that house, you hear my voice in your head too. You are not alone. You understand? One strange feeling, one wrong move, you grab your keys and you leave. My mama cut in. If you even think he might hit you again, we will drive all night. I don't care if it's 2 a.m, you call us. I promised them I would. I promised Sierra. I promised Monique. And then, late that night, I texted Jordan for the first time since the slap. I am ready to come home and talk. His reply came back almost instantly. Jordan. Good. Mama and I have been so worried about you. Of course, she was part of the we. 2 days later, I was driving west on I-20 again. The bruise on my cheek had faded to a dull yellow. But inside, nothing had faded. It had sharpened. The new bank card was in my wallet. The recorder app was already installed on my phone, labeled with a boring name like Notes. The little camera clock sat in a tote bag on the passenger seat. As I pulled into our driveway in DeSoto, both cars were there, Jordan's and Miss Claudette's. My stomach rolled. I parked, put my hand on the steering wheel, and made myself breathe in slowly and out slowly, just like the counselor at school once told my students to do. You're not going back as a victim, I whispered to myself. You're going back as a witness. When I opened the front door, they were waiting in the living room like a panel. Jordan on the couch with his arms folded, Miss Claudette in the armchair, Bible on her lap like a prop. I felt a scream rise up in my chest, but I swallowed it. That wasn't the plan. I'm sorry, I said, letting my shoulders droop just a little. I shouldn't have left like that. I overreacted. I almost choked on the words, but I said them. For the record. Jordan's shoulders relaxed. I watched relief slide over his face. That's good to hear, he said. We can move past this, Ariana, but you have to understand family comes first. Always. I nodded like I agreed. Inside, I thought, you're right. Family does come first. And right now, I'm finally putting myself in my family. Miss Claudette stood up, hand over her heart. Oh, sweetheart, we were so worried, she said. The devil really tried to get in between us, didn't he? But God is a healer. We can move forward as one family now. I almost laughed. Instead, I set my tote bag down casually on a side table. Later, when no one was looking, that cheap little clock would move from my bag to the bookshelf with a perfect view of the couch. The first few days back felt like walking on broken glass. I cooked, I cleaned, I nodded through their little comments. I took long showers so I could cry without anyone hearing. Every morning when Jordan left for work, I felt my shoulders drop with relief. Every evening when his car pulled into the driveway, they went right back up again. But under all that, the plan kept moving. I went to our bedroom closet and pulled out our old shoebox of important papers: wedding license, car title, tax returns. While Jordan watched TV in the living room, I sat on the bedroom floor with my phone, snapping picture after picture. Our joint tax returns, his pay stubs, the refinance papers with his mama's name and his signature, all of it. At night, when he fell asleep, I crept into the kitchen where we kept the mail basket. I pulled out bank statements and credit card bills, took photos of every page, and tucked them back exactly how I found them. The charges were all there in black and white. Furniture for future room. New curtains, a tablet, restaurant bills from nights he told me he was working late. The first time I pressed record on my phone, my hand shook so badly I almost dropped it. I slid it into my pocket before I walked into the living room. Jordan was sitting with his feet up, scrolling his phone. Miss Claudette was talking about me like I wasn't even there. "You can't let her control this, Jordan," she said. "You are the head of the household. The Bible is clear. Sometimes a woman needs to be reminded where the covering is." "She's calming down," he replied. "Leaving like that scared her. She knows better now." I stood at the edge of the room folding laundry I had already folded, my phone recording every word. My chest burned, but my face stayed blank. I had learned from watching them. You can say a lot with your eyes when you think nobody important is watching. Today, someone important was. The hidden clock camera caught even more. On days when they thought I was at school late, Miss Claudette would come by to check on things. She went through our mail. She opened drawers. One afternoon she sat on my couch talking to her sister on speakerphone. "I told Jordan," she said, her voice clear on the recording. "Sometimes women get beside themselves. A little scare straightens them out. Our mamas understood that. These new girls, they think marriage is a partnership. Somebody has to teach them." Another time I caught Jordan bragging. "She'll learn," he told her. "Just like you did with Daddy. Y'all had your moments, but he kept you in line." They laughed together. The sound made my skin crawl. The camera caught every second. I recorded counseling sessions too. Jordan insisted we see a church counselor from his mama's circle. I knew nothing good would come out of it, but I went phone in my purse. Recording. In the little office with the cross on the wall, Jordan told a half-truth version of what happened. "I lost my temper," he said. "It was one time. I just snapped because she disrespected my mother. I didn't hit her hard. It was like a wake-up tap." The counselor nodded slowly. "Emotions can get high when family is involved," she said. "Ariana, if you can forgive, the Lord can restore." On the recording, my voice sounded small but clear. "Forgiveness and safety are two different things," I said. At home, the pattern kept going. Miss Claudette pushed the move-in plan harder. "You know I close on the house next month," she said one Sunday. "The movers are ready. My furniture will look so good in that guest room." I smiled politely in front of her, and wrote the date in my notebook later that night. All the while, my safety, money, and proof columns filled up. Extra clothes at Sierra's check. Cash tucked into an envelope in my desk at school check. Digital copies of everything check. 2 trustworthy neighbors quietly agreeing to write statements if needed check. 2 months after I moved back, Miss Claudette made her big announcement at Sunday dinner. "Great news, everybody," she said, smiling wide. "I close on the house Friday. The movers are coming Saturday to bring my things here. God is so good." A chorus of amens and praise God circled the table. Jordan nodded, proud. "We're doing what family is supposed to do," he said. "Taking care of our own." I looked down at my plate, hiding the tiny smile forming at the corner of my mouth. "Actually," I said quietly, "I have some news too. I invited a few people over this afternoon. They should be here soon." Jordan frowned. "Who did you invite?" "You'll see," I replied. A few hours later, after the dishes were washed and the last bit of cobbler was eaten, people started arriving. Jordan's aunt and uncle from Cedar Hill, 2 of his cousins, one of Miss Claudette's sisters, and Brother Louis from our old church. The living room filled up fast. Jordan kept asking, "Ariana, what is this?" But I just said, "We're family, right?" I just wanted witnesses. My heart was pounding hard enough to make my vision blur, but my hands were steady as I rolled the TV stand closer and connected my laptop. The little clock on the shelf stared back at me like it knew its work was finally about to pay off. This was what E5 needed to do. Bring every quiet, secret thing into the light. I took a deep breath, looked at the people packed into that room, then turned to Jordan and Miss Claudette. "Thank you for coming," I said. "There are some things I need you all to hear for yourselves." Then, with my finger hovering over the trackpad, I opened the first video file. The first image on the screen was my own face. I took the picture in Sierra's bathroom the morning after the slap. No filter, no soft light. Just the red handprint on my brown cheek, the split lip, the empty look in my eyes. Now it was blown up on the TV in my living room in DeSoto, in front of Jordan's family and his mother. For a second, nobody moved. Jordan's aunt covered her mouth. Deacon Ronald's eyes shone. Jordan jumped up. "Turn that off," he snapped. "You're doing too much, Ariana. This is private." I kept my finger on the laptop. "Private?" I said. "You hit me in your mother's dining room. In front of people." "That wasn't private." He started toward me, but his uncle stepped in front of him. "Sit down, son," Deacon Ronald said. "You put your hands on her?" Jordan glared at me. "She's twisting it," he said. "It wasn't like that. I clicked to the next slide." The urgent care report came up. The words were plain on the screen. Facial contusion, minor lip laceration, patient reports being struck by husband with open hand. "I went to the doctor," I said. "They wrote it down. I filed a police report too." I held up my hand. "I'm not done." I pressed play on the first audio file. Jordan's voice filled the room, from that church counselor's office. "It was one time," he said. "I just snapped. She disrespected my mother in her house. I didn't hit her hard. It was like a wake-up tap. A reality check." The counselor hummed. "Emotions can get high," she said. "If Ariana can forgive," I paused the recording. "So when you say, twisting it," I said, "that's your own voice. Your own words. You admitted it." The room felt tight. Jordan's aunt shook her head. "I didn't raise you like that," she whispered. Jordan's eyes jumped to his mother. She straightened in her chair. "Now hold on," Miss Claudette said. "You don't know what goes on in a marriage. Sometimes a woman pushes a man. Sometimes she needs correction. You can't judge off one little clip." I clicked on the next file before she finished. Her own voice poured out of the speakers. "She was on my couch that day, talking to her sister. Sometimes women need to be reminded of their place," she said. "Ariana's finally learning." Jordan handled it exactly right. Her sister, sitting on my love seat, jerked her head toward her. "Claudette! Is that you?" she shouted. "That's taken out of context," Miss Claudette said quickly. "We were just talking." I hit play again. This time it was Jordan and his mother in the living room when they thought I wasn't home. "She'll learn," Jordan said on the recording. "Just like you did with Daddy. You said he had to keep you in line sometimes." They both laughed on the tape. On the couch, Miss Claudette's face went pale. "Turn that off," she hissed. "You had no right to record me. That's illegal. In Texas," I said, "it's legal to record a conversation you're part of. One-party consent." Monique made sure I knew that. I clicked to the next slide. Bank statements filled the screen. "These are withdrawals and charges from our joint account," I said. "The tablet, the curtains, the furniture for your future room in my house. All with your name, Miss Claudette. All without my consent. That's thousands of dollars," one cousin said. "Auntie, did you really spend all that from their account?" "I am his mother," she snapped. "Everything he has, I helped him get." "But it's not just his," I said. "It's ours. This is our joint money, our credit, our home." My hands trembled, but my voice stayed even. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here so nobody can say they didn't know. I want everyone in this room to understand what has been happening." Jordan tried to rush the TV, but Deacon Ronald and his cousin blocked him. "Don't touch that," his uncle said. "You want to knock her down again in front of us too? You believe this?" Jordan shouted. "You're just going to believe her?" His aunt pointed at the screen. "We're hearing you," she said. "We're hearing Mama. This is not somebody else's lie. This is y'all." She turned to me. "Ariana, why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Because every time I tried, I was told to honor my husband and his mother," I said. "I was told this was normal. I let them make me feel crazy. But I'm not crazy. I'm done being quiet. That's why this morning," I said, "before any of you came, I went to the courthouse." The doorbell rang. Then I smiled. "That should be them now," I said. Jordan frowned. "Them who?" I walked to the door and opened it. Monique stood there in her navy suit. Next to her was a middle-aged black woman holding envelopes. "Afternoon, Mrs. Mitchell," Monique said. Come in, I replied. We walked back into the living room. This is my attorney, Miss Monique Harris, I said. And this is Miss Daniels. She's a process server. The woman with the envelopes cleared her throat. Jordan Mitchell? She asked. Jordan's jaw clenched. Yeah. She handed him a thick envelope. You've been served. He ripped it open. Papers slid into his lap. His eyes moved over the first page. What is this? He muttered. Divorce? Protective order? He looked up at me. You're divorcing me? Yes, I said. I am. Monique stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, she said. Those documents are a petition for divorce and a request for a family violence protective order. The court has granted a temporary order. You are not allowed to contact Ariana. You must stay at least 500 feet away from her home and her workplace. Miss Daniels turned to his mother. Miss Claudette Mitchell? She blinked. Excuse me? You've been served, Miss Daniels said, handing her another envelope. You are also included in the protective order. The same distance applies. You can't do this, Miss Claudette said. That is my son. This is our family home. Monique shook her head. This townhouse, she said, is owned in Ariana's name only. Her parents helped with the down payment. The deed is in her name. Jordan flipped through the papers. The prenup, he said. It says my separate property is protected. It says, yes, Monique said. It protects your separate property. Everything you owned before the marriage stays yours. Everything Ariana owned stays hers. Joint assets will be divided under Texas law, and the money your mother spent without Ariana's consent will be an issue. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Across the room, his aunt stood up. She looked from my bruised face on the screen to the papers in his hand. I can't support this, she said to him. Not the hitting. Not the lying. Ariana, I am so sorry. I believed what I wanted because it was easier. She turned to Miss Claudette. And you, she said. You always did like control. We all saw it with Leonard. We just never thought you'd push your son to be like that too. For 7 years, I said, I have tried to be the wife he wanted and the daughter-in-law you wanted. I bent myself into shapes to keep the peace. I set myself on fire to keep this family warm. You still weren't satisfied. You wanted to break me. I picked up my laptop and my notebook. But here's what you forgot, I said. I'm not weak. I'm strategic, and I protected myself the way neither of you ever would. Monique looked at them. You both need to leave now, she said. The order is active. If you stay, you're in violation. Jordan started to speak, but Deacon Ronald cut him off. Boy, he said, get up and go. You did this. Don't make it worse. Slowly, Jordan stood. His face was red. You're ruining my life, he said. I met his eyes. You put your hands on me, I replied. You let your mother tear down our marriage. I'm just refusing to let you ruin mine any further. Miss Claudette stood too, clutching her purse. You'll regret this, she hissed. I would rather be alone, I said, than with someone who thinks hurting me is love. The door closed behind them with a soft click. It wasn't loud, but in my heart, it sounded like a wall falling down. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Jordan's aunt came and wrapped her arms around me. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt my tears on her shoulder. You're not crazy, she whispered. You're not wrong. You're brave. Around the room, people nodded. A cousin said, if you need a witness, I'm there. Brother Lewis said, if you need me to speak up at church, I will. My knees felt weak. My hands were still shaking. I was exhausted. But under all of that, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. If you're watching this and your stomach is tight because this sounds like your life, listen to me. I didn't win that day because I yelled the loudest. I won because I had proof, a plan, and people who finally saw the truth. If you're in something like this, start small. Write it down, save the text, talk to someone you trust. Tell me in the comments what part of this hit you the hardest. Your words might help another woman notice her own red flags. And if you haven't yet, Subscribe to Voices of Untold Stories, because the next part of this isn't just about what they lost. It's about what I built after I walked them out of my front door. The house felt too quiet after everyone left. I just stood there in the middle of the living room, staring at the door they'd slammed on their way out. My laptop was still warm in my hands, the TV screen was blue. The air felt heavy, but inside my chest something finally felt open. For 7 years, I had tried to keep the peace. In one afternoon, I had ripped the mask off my husband and my mother-in-law in front of their whole family. That night, I slept with the hallway light on. I checked the front door twice, then 3 times. I dragged a chair under my bedroom doorknob, even though I knew the temporary protective order was already in place. My mind kept repeating, "You're safer now." My body still expected Jordan's footsteps coming down the hall. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. First were the texts. "You didn't have to do all that. You ruined my life over one mistake. Answer me. We need to talk like adults." Not one text said, "I'm sorry I hit you." Not one text said, "What I did was wrong." I didn't answer any of them. I saved every single message in a special folder, just like Monique had told me to do. Then the calls started: unknown numbers, blocked ID, random local numbers. The phone would ring 5, 6, 7 times in a row. I let every call go to voicemail. Later, I sat on the couch and listened with the volume low. Sometimes Jordan was angry. "You're really going to send your own husband to jail?" Sometimes he tried to sound soft. "Ari, please, don't throw us away. We can fix this." The words changed, but the center was the same every time. It was still all about him, his life, his name, his comfort. Never about my face, my fear, my safety. Every voicemail got forwarded to Monique. Every new number went into the file she was building for the judge. The order said he had to stay away from my house and my job. So of course, 2 weeks later, I looked out my classroom window during my planning period and saw him standing at the far end of the school parking lot. He didn't come inside. He didn't sign in at the office. He just leaned against his car with his arms crossed, staring at the building like he could pull me outside with his eyes. My hands shook as I walked down the hallway to Mr. Lawson's office. "Hes here," I said, "Jordan." "In the parking lot. I have a protective order." Mr. Lawson's expression changed in an instant. He told the secretary to call the police, then walked back to the front window with me. We watched the squad car pull into the lot. The officers talked to Jordan, checked the order, then put him in the back seat and drove away. I cried afterward in the staff restroom. Not because I felt bad for him, but because this had become my new normal. Court papers, police reports, looking over my shoulder at work, all because the man who said he loved me couldn't stand the word no. A few weeks later, he broke the order again. One night, somebody started pounding on my townhouse door, hard enough to rattle the frame. I heard his voice through the wood, loud and angry, yelling my name. My heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. The neighbor across the hall called 911 before I even grabbed my phone. When the officers arrived, I met them with the protective order in my hand. They arrested him again, right there in front of my little row of townhomes. Neighbors peeked through their blinds. I stood there shaking, but I stayed on my feet. Each time he crossed a line, the case against him grew stronger. Each time, a little piece of fear inside me let go. While all of that was happening in real life, another battle started online. One afternoon, Tiana texted me a screenshot. It was Miss Claudette's Facebook post, long, dramatic, full of half-truths and self-pity. She wrote about a false accusing daughter-in-law who had turned her own husband over to the law and torn a family apart after all we did for her. She called herself a grieving widow left alone in her time of need. She didn't write my name, but everybody in their world knew who she meant. The comments underneath made my stomach twist. "Praying for you, sis. Some women don't know how to be a wife. God will clear your name." For almost an hour, I paced my living room with my phone in my hand. I could feel my fingers itching to type, long explanations, screenshots, paragraphs of truth. I could argue with strangers in her comments. I could try to fix my image one person at a time. Then I remembered what I had. Not speeches, not drama, proof. I made a simple profile, no job, no school, no details, just my first name, and a calm picture of the sunset over the Trinity River. Then I posted 3 short audio clips and 1 photo. Clip 1, Miss Claudette's voice saying, "Sometimes women need to be reminded of their place." Ariana's finally learning. Jordan handled it exactly right. Clip 2, Jordan in counseling saying, "I slapped her. It was a reality check." Clip 3, Miss Claudette coaching him, "Don't let her turn this on you. Stand firm. You're the head of the house." And the photo? My face the day after the slap. The bruise spreading across my cheek. The split lip. The empty look in my eyes. My caption was simple. "Before you comment, listen." By that evening, the post was everywhere in our little corner of Dallas. People started dropping the audio clips in the comments under Miss Claudette's sad story. "This you?" someone wrote, tagging her. "So this is helping your son?" another asked. Some of her closest friends quietly unfriended her. Women from her Bible study stopped reacting to her posts. The ones who stayed mostly went quiet. The mask she had worn for years was cracking, and people didn't like what they saw underneath. At church, the air felt different too. Brother Lewis, the assistant pastor who had watched her stand up and ask for prayer for wives who resist God's plan, asked to meet with me. We sat in a little room with metal chairs and thin carpet that had seen better days. "I listened to those recordings," he said. "What I saw that Sunday was not right. I should have said something then. I'm sorry I didn't." A few weeks later, he preached a sermon on spiritual abuse, how people use scripture to control grown children and spouses, how they hide cruelty under church language. He talked about mothers who hold their sons so tight they choke their marriages. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. Meanwhile, Jordan was learning that consequences follow you to work. One of his biggest insurance clients was a black-owned business run by a man who was very outspoken about domestic violence. Someone from church sent him the recordings. The owner called Jordan in. "Is this your voice?" he asked. Jordan tried to dance around the question. The owner had already heard everything. The company dropped him the next day. 2 smaller clients followed within weeks. His income fell. He still had a job, but the shine was gone. People didn't see solid family man anymore. They saw a man who hit his wife and got recorded. Miss Claudette had her own fall. The church leadership called her into a meeting. For years, she had led the women's ministry, organized dinners, and taught classes about biblical womanhood. Now they asked her to step back from leadership for a season. That's church language for, "You're out." She left furious. From what someone told Tiana, "After everything I've done for that church," she said, "they throw me away over one girl with a camera." It wasn't one girl. It was her own words, finally played in a room she couldn't control. While their worlds shook, mine slowly steadied. Mr. Lawson and the district didn't treat me like a problem. They stood beside me. The school board sent a note thanking me for my courage. Mr. Lawson looked me in the eye and said, "If you need time off, we'll make it happen. If you want to stay, well, make sure you feel safe here." I decided to stay. Knowing I had a real choice helped me breathe. Later, the district used my story without my name in training for principals on how to support staff dealing with domestic violence. Sitting in the back of that room, watching my life turned into a case study on a PowerPoint slide, was strange and painful. But it also made the hurt feel less wasted. The criminal case moved like a slow train. Because of the photos, the medical report, the police calls, the recordings, and the times he ignored the order, the district attorney decided to go forward no matter what. "You are not carrying this alone," the DA told me. "With this much evidence, the state has a duty to act." Jordan's lawyer tried to make everything sound small. A misunderstanding, a heated moment, a private matter. The stack of evidence on the table told a different story. In the end, he took a plea on a misdemeanor family violence charge and agreed to probation and counseling. It didn't fix my past. It didn't erase the slap. But it put the truth in black and white on a court record. This happened, and it was wrong. Then came the divorce hearing. I wore a simple navy dress. Sierra sat on one side of me and Tiana on the other. My parents drove in from Baton Rouge and sat behind us in the second row. My hands were cold, even though the Texas sun was hot outside. Jordan walked in with his lawyer. He looked thinner, like someone had taken the air out of him. The easy swagger he used to carry everywhere was gone. He kept his eyes on the table. The judge, a black woman with silver at her temples, flipped through the file, the photos, the transcripts, the reports. Our whole marriage sat between her hands in a stack of paper. "I have reviewed the evidence," she said. "The medical report, the police reports, the recordings, and the history of this relationship. It is clear to the court that Mrs. Mitchell has grounds for divorce and for a long-term protective order." Jordan's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client made one mistake." The judge raised her hand. "Hitting your wife is not a mistake," she said. "It is a choice. Ignoring a court order is not a mistake, it is contempt." Then she looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell, would you like to say anything before I rule?" My knees shook when I stood, but my voice stayed steady. "For a long time," I said, "I thought if I just tried harder, prayed more, and served more, I could make my marriage safe. I thought honoring my husband and his mother meant ignoring the part of me that kept saying, 'This is wrong.' I'm not asking the court to fix the past. I'm asking for the chance to build a future without fear." She nodded once. "Thank you." Then she closed the file. "Divorce granted," she said. "Protective order extended to the maximum 5 years. Mr. Mitchell will pay spousal support for a set period. All rights and responsibilities are detailed in the decree." Her gavel tapped the desk. Just like that, 7 years of marriage were closed in a few sentences. Jordan's lawyer patted his shoulder. He glanced back at me once, his face tight with anger, and something that almost looked like shame. Then he walked out. I saw Miss Claudette sitting in the very back row. She left right behind him, staring straight ahead, shoulders stiff. For the first time since I had known her, she looked small. Outside the courthouse, the sun felt brighter than I remembered. My mama kissed my cheek. My daddy wrapped his arm around my shoulders. Sierra squeezed my hand until it hurt. "How do you feel?" Tiana asked softly. I took a long breath and really listened to my own answer. "Like the air is different," I said. "Still scary, but lighter." That night, in my quiet townhouse, I opened the notebook where I had written everything down. On the last page I wrote, "Today the judge said it out loud. Family violence. Protective order. Divorce granted. I am not property. I am not crazy. I am free." I slid the notebook into a box with the camera clock, the bank statements, and an extra copy of the order. On the lid I wrote in big letters, "Evidence." Under it in small letters I added, "Proof I will never ignore myself again." I didn't know yet that I would move, or switch schools, or one day stand beside other women in courtrooms like this. All I knew in that moment was simple. They tried to erase me. They tried to break me. Instead, they pushed me toward a life where my voice finally mattered. 2 years after the judge signed my divorce papers, I wake up to birds outside my bedroom window and sunlight on walls I chose myself. My condo is not fancy, but it is mine. No one has a key but me. No one walks in without knocking. There are no surprise visits, no late-night emergencies when I have plans. Most mornings I make coffee in my favorite blue mug and sit on the balcony with my cat, Justice, curled at my feet. My sister called her name dramatic. I call it honest. Work is different now. I transferred to a new elementary school across town. Nobody there knows me as the teacher with the difficult mother-in-law. They just know me as Miss Mitchell, the assistant principal who listens and quietly fights for her students. My job has more weight now. When I talk to a girl whose mom is scared at home, or a boy who flinches when someone raises a voice, I see pieces of my story. I cannot fix everything, but I can listen, believe them, and walk them toward help. I can be the adult who says, "You are not crazy. This is not love. Therapy is part of my normal life." Every Thursday I sit across from Dr. Lewis and say things I used to swallow. We talk about fear and freedom. Healing is not a straight line. Some days I feel strong. Some days a smell or a song makes my hands shake, but even then I am moving forward. I also started a support circle for Black women dealing with family control and church-wrapped manipulation. Twice a month we meet in a small community room. Women arrive whispering and watching the door. Little by little, they sit up straighter. Guests explain rights, trauma, and money. Every time a woman walks out with a simple plan, an account, a bag, a call to make, I feel that same small door of freedom open again. As for Jordan and Miss Claudette, life did not end the way they pictured. They ended up living together again in a smaller place across town. He remarried fast, and his new wife tried to live with them. It did not last. I heard she filed her own complaints and left. His business never fully recovered. Clients remember. Miss Claudette grew more and more alone. The women who once praised her now keep their distance. Her health broke down. I do not celebrate her pain, but I remember she smiled when her son hit me. My compassion has limits, and my boundaries stay firm. His side of the family did not vanish. They call on holidays and invite me to family events. I do not go to everything, but when they say, "We choose you," I believe them. For years I chased their approval. Now I simply accept their respect. My own family is my safe harbor. My parents drive in from Baton Rouge when they can. My sister and I talk almost every day. We laugh louder now. There is room for joy without walking on eggshells. I am learning to love again, slowly and carefully. There is someone new who knows my whole story and does not flinch. He asks, "Does this feel okay?" and waits for the answer. Whether he is a long chapter or just a kind page, he proves that gentle men exist. So if you are watching this and some part of you is whispering, "That sounds like my life," please listen to that voice. It might be quiet right now, but it is wise. You are not dramatic. You are not ungrateful. You are not the problem for wanting peace in your own home. You deserve safety. You deserve respect. You deserve a life where your phone does not fill you with dread, and your front door is not something you fear. Now I want to hear from you. Did any part of my story sit close to your own? What is one small step you could take to protect yourself? Writing things down, talking to someone you trust, or asking for legal advice. Share in the comments. Your words might be the lifeline another woman needs tonight. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for watching until the end. If my story gave you courage, tap the like button so more women can find it. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the next true story of somebody taking their power back. And when this video ends, do not just scroll away, pick one of the stories on the end screen. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep reminding yourself that starting over is not the end of your story. It is the first quiet step into your own freedom.